And when rapid speed down to 2,500.
Good point. Wherever you reduce speed to 180.
Blackbox.
Hey gang, KP here, KP's Blackbox. Welcome back. Today we have my great friend and also the Chief of Operations of Kenneth Porter and Company here again with us, Mr. Shannon Shortridge.
Hey, everybody.
A.K.A. Shorty.
Shorty.
A.K.A. Steven. A.K.A. Shannon.
Quadruple S.
Quadruple S.
Yeah.
We do. It's all the time. I've got nothing new for you but the S man.
Yep.
So, as some of you may already know, Shannon's here with the firm. He started out a client of Kenneth Porter and Company years ago. U.S. Navy, served with a bunch of frogmen. He was a SWIC guy, Navy Special Warfare. And we reeled him in here at KP & Co. Officially a few months ago, was here during a foundation program too with the Navy. Tell everybody a little bit about that.
Yeah, so, Naval Special Warfare falls under what's called SOCOM, right? Special Operations Command. And within Special Operations Command, guys and girls that are pushing towards that retirement date, about 6 months out, they offer a paid, not paid, but you're still paid by the government, right?
An internship.
An unpaid internship.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to be able to come in under the KP Co banner and, as you know, spend 6 months. 6 months here to
Figuring out if this is what you wanted to do or not.
Yeah, and that's really what you got warriors out there that spend an entire life, 20 plus years in the military, and they know their job.
Right.
And then when it comes time to do that transition, how important is it to be able to go in and get an idea of what things you're interested in.
Yeah.
And go and check them out and, possibly get, a new job going.
Yeah.
So.
It's pretty cool. Our friend Dash
Yep.
Wong, shout out to Dash this morning.
Hey, Dash.
Oh, crap. Dash, I owe you a phone call. You called me while I was on vacation. Remind me after the podcast to call Dash back.
I got your back, Dash.
I screwed you, buddy. I'm sorry. Right here, public confession. I will call you after this podcast.
There we go.
But yeah, Dash actually did a little foundation with I think a surf company for a little while, and then he ended up with a energy drink company.
Yep.
And went to work with them for a while. Now he's out there doing his own glorious thing on his own, which is cool.
Yep.
Dash, I will call you. But yeah, I mean the opportunities that are available and afforded to veterans out there is pretty amazing these days. And
Yeah, and take away the SOCOM umbrella, and you look at the military as a whole. They have other options like SkillBridge,
yeah.
where depending on your rank, you could spend up 3 to 6 months doing the same thing.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this today and you're thinking about there's a career opportunity, talk to your command and look to see what programs are available for you. Don't just get to the last day and go, man, I don't have a plan to get out.
Right. Yeah, and if you're
Work
in
on it.
Hampton Roads, big military community here,
Right.
And you're interested in the financial services industry, we're a great source to possibly
give us a
come
shout
and
out.
do. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
One thing I always forget to do too, if you're watching these podcasts and you like the content that we're putting out, do us a favor, hit the like button. What do they say? Smash the subscribe button or whatever.
Yeah.
So smash and like.
Just don't smash your computer.
Yeah, we would appreciate that. So when we start out every podcast, I've made it a point to always give back to our community of sagers. What is that? Soldiers,
There we
sailors, Marine. I haven't even started drinking this morning. I'm already.
Oh boy.
putting
We'll
words
see where
together.
this goes.
Soldiers, sailors, Marines, coasties, airmen. It's important to give back. And I was actually on the phone driving in this morning, thinking about the podcast today, Shorty, and it reminded me that I had a phone call to make to a buddy of mine who's fighter pilot on the reserve side, flies F-18s, and is a Delta pilot full time. So I called my buddy Todd this morning and said, "Hey man, I got to get you and your brother and your dad, who are all Naval Academy graduates. His twin brother Brooks was a graduate with him, and I think their other brother, can't remember completely, but
Yeah.
all Academy guys, all the way back to their
Yeah, that's really
father.
cool, isn't it?
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So I said, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm on the drive up to Annapolis this weekend." And I was like, "Oh, you're going to watch a football game?" And he was like, "Well, actually, we're going up to celebrate the life of a young airman who passed away in a helicopter crash. So today, specifically, I want to give a shout out and a toast to Nicholas. Let me make sure I've got this right. Jahan. Yeah, thanks, Jake, for bringing that up. This young man passed away December 13th, 2005, while conducting an anti-drug operations off the coast of Colombia, just after shortly launching from the USS DeWitt. He was a 1998 graduate of Great Mills High School, and then went on to serve in the U.S. Naval Academy and graduated in 2002. He was a classmate of our clients and my buddy, the Clevelands.
Oh, wow.
And the Clevelands played rugby in the Naval Academy. And so there's a celebration of his life this weekend where they're going to honor him. And so I told him today, I was like, you know what? I'd love to give him a shout out and let folks out there know, put a name, the face. We talk about all these veterans and people who have given it all. Mm-hmm. This guy in the line of operations gave up his life.
Yep, paid the ultimate sacrifice.
So salute to Lieutenant J.G. Nicholas Jahan. And please forgive me if I'm pronouncing his last name right, but my southern accent sometimes can get tongue twisted with my lack of the command of the Queen's English. So
there you go.
Anyways.
Cheers.
Cheers to you, Nick, and your family.
That's good.
Shorty, what did you pick today?
Yeah, so we've got Rabbit Hole, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, finished in a sherry cask. A really good friend of mine and his dad recommended this to me. Gosh.
Have you ever had it before?
Yeah, years ago.
Okay.
Problem is, so they recommended it. I bought a bottle, drank it, went down to North Carolina, and my buddy, Gary Williams and Michael Williams. And Gary gave me another bottle.
Shout out to Gary, by the way.
Yep.
Amazing stock trader.
Yeah. Actually, amazing coach.
Yeah.
Really. So he gave me a bottle. I went home that next weekend, and I drank the whole thing over the weekend.
Oh, gee. Confessional.
Yeah. I mean, it is really good. Very smooth.
Yeah.
So I don't do that anymore.
My rabbit hole, I think, is authentic.
Yeah.
But I heard that there was a little switcheroo this morning.
Really?
Yeah.
What's that?
Jake, you want to help me? See over there?
Huh. Is that this?
Shorty, you got to drink
Kentucky Gentleman.
Kentucky Gentleman. I, on the other hand,
That's smooth.
had rabbit hole.
I'll give you that.
In all fairness, let's switch. Take mine.
Huh.
Let me have yours.
Maybe there'll be a podcast where I don't get duped in this place.
You said it's smooth, so
It is smooth.
We're going to see. Oh, my Lord.
That's what I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry we did that to you.
You can taste
You
could taste the sherry in this.
You could taste the piss in this.
Yeah.
You like that? Or it was just...
I mean, tempt me with a good time, Kenny.
Well, we did. We tempted you. And,
Can we take this shit away?
Shout out to Kentucky Gentleman. You got Shorty. Rabbit Hole.
No, it's good.
Best $20 whiskey there
Best
is.
$20 whiskey there is.
We're going to take that out of the picture.
Man. But shout out to Rabbit Hole here. I do
Yeah.
enjoy some good Rabbit Hole.
Well, I guess
And,
that shows my palate. Is,
that's right. Hey,
maybe
by the way, that was
all-
not my idea.
yeah, maybe all whiskey is good whiskey.
And I was like, man, how are we going to honor Nick
yeah.
and then pull this fuckery on Shorty here?
It was Isaiah's idea.
It was Isaiah's idea.
Just remember, I'm your guys' COO, so.
Yeah.
Uh,
Shit rolls downhill is
It
what you're
does.
saying?
Yep.
All
All
right.
right. So, you want to get to business here?
Let's get to business.
Yeah. Let me share real quick. There we go. All right. So
what are we going to talk about today?
yeah, today let's talk about protection.
Okay.
What do you think?
I'm down with it.
So everybody watching, we use a very specific process called LEAP, Lifetime Economic Acceleration Process, eventually becoming the KP Co Wealth Journey.
That's right.
Right? And in our process, as you guys can see here, there's 3 sets of boxes, 27 total, I guess we'll call them cubes. And on the top
Models,
here,
micro models,
Micro
right?
models, yep. On the top here is protection. And this is what we're going to talk about today, guys, is protection. And then we'll do another one on savings, and then we'll do a third one on growth. So we're going to go through our full model in a mini series here. I think it's important, though, Kenny, that we point out the fact that protection's at the top.
Yeah.
When we look at traditional financial planning, we typically look at stocks and bonds, right? And growing a person's portfolio, which is great.
Yep.
When we grow a person's portfolio, they're subject to many different things that can have an effect on that growth, right?
Right.
Taxes, inflation, market volatility, planned obsolescence, the advancement in technology, all the things that we speak to our clients about.
Yeah.
So our process, we start right here in these purple boxes in protection because we want to make sure that our clients are protected in a whole. And we also want to make sure that we're growing. But in the event that we have an unforeseen instance where, like you had a client, his daughter hit somebody, I'm sure we'll get into this,
Yeah.
hit somebody with a car, unfortunately broke his hip, and he was subject to a lawsuit, right?
Right.
And he got sued. But our strategy was able to build in a lot of protection so that he didn't get whacked.
Yeah. Maximize your protection against the litigious society that we live in,
Right.
against lawsuits, but minimize the costs. And the way you do that in simple form and fashion is you raise your deductibles to a limit in which you can afford the small pain in life, but we want to put the insurance company on the hook for the catastrophic things in
Yeah.
life, the things that can erode those orange and blue boxes on the model here.
Yeah.
So, protection is something where most people think about, man, I'm just giving the insurance company all of this money and there's nothing for me except pure cost.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Our focus is if we're going to spend $1 on protection, how many of those dollars can we recover over your lifetime? And can we achieve the maximum protection? And by the way, when I say maximum protection, that word just flies by sometimes, but
Yeah.
let's peel that onion back. Okay. Maximum protection. If someone came to you today and said, Shorty, think about it as a war fighter. Do you want the maximum protection for your troops, or do you want the maximum exposure for your troops to risk?
I want the max protection so that if I'm exposed
Yeah.
to a catastrophic event, we have things in place to take
Yeah.
care of it.
So, you think about this in medieval terms, think of it in castles.
Right.
The castles that were built during medieval times were pretty magnificent. We go back and we look at them. We go to Scotland and Ireland and to the Czech Republic and to all of these regions in the world to look at these magnificent castles. But really they were defense strategies that kings and queens and lords put in place to protect their gold or their precious assets.
And when you say defense, it's not just one defense.
Right.
We're talking about layers of defense, right?
So the founder of the LEAP system was a guy named Bob Castellone, probably one of the smartest men I know on the planet, economically trained, has a strong background in economics, wasn't your traditional like economist, but focused more in the retail side, the financial planning side of personal financial economics. But he would have these conversations, and I heard not only Bob Castellan say this, but I also heard Warren Buffett say it in a conference once, that in an ideal world, you would build a magnificent defensive structure castle. You would build the greatest moat around your castle, and you'd put in the meanest, ugliest, nastiest creatures in that moat, all as a sense of defense mechanisms to keep your enemies away from it, or at least get them thinking, man, I do not want to try to cross that moat.
Yeah.
But maybe they get a little ballsy and they want to come up to your castle. Well, wouldn't we want to see them as early as possible? So we mow down trees away from the castle. We've got it at the highest advantage, the high point, right?
Yep.
And in military tactics,
Yep.
you want the high ground, right?
Right.
I can't think of a time where there would ever be a point where I want to be in a low position.
Right. Unless you get to hand-to-hand combat, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But that high point has its advantage.
Yeah.
The overwatcher always wants the high point.
And what's cool too is, so we talk about the moats, we talk about the height of eye is what we're really getting into here. But also, if an enemy gets past that big long, plane, they get to the bridge, it's up, but they find a way across the moat. Now they get to the castle. Those castles were built 2-3 layers deep behind walls.
Yeah.
So now you got to break through the first wall to get to the second to get to the third, and then that there were tar pits that were ready to be dropped on people.
Ooh, brutal.
I mean, yeah, everything, right?
So what we're talking about is primary, contingent, tertiary, and beyond layers of protection. And that's what these purple boxes or these purple models do. They protect your assets and your income, your assets, your income, and your life. And as you work from the left to the right and down, the stronger and more efficient these microeconomic models become as a whole.
Yep.
And one way to think about it is just a big umbrella over your entire financial model.
Yeah. So, KP, what do you think about just hitting P1 through P3 here and talking about assets for a minute?
Yeah.
All right.
So the first three represent your vehicle, your property, and then your overall liability. And so the idea here is to make sure that when you think about risk in the world we live in today, the vehicle that you drive and that you move from point A to point B in usually represents one of your greatest risks. Mm-hmm. And if you think about
it's probably the most common thing.
Common thing, right?
Yeah,
and the most
from
common
home to work.
Yep. And I can tell you weekly, and I'm trying to be as honest as possible in my own mind here, but weekly I see an accident. Mm-hmm. And it's usually between two people, and it means that one person was probably being careless. Mm-hmm. Right? And the accident means that somebody now is responsible for the other party's losses. Right. Could be loss of wages, loss of income, loss of limb, loss of assets, yep. Right? And if your insurance is set up right, that should be that first layer of protection in your car, is that you have your car insurance designed right. Now, the story that I've told many times and told in workshops is a client of mine in Tennessee who, when I first met him, had state minimums on his car insurance.
Can you just kind of peel that back a little bit when you talk about state minimums?
Yep. So when you own a vehicle in Virginia, Tennessee, any state, most states tell insurance companies there is a minimum amount of insurance that a policyholder has to have if they're going to drive a vehicle on public roads. So if you drive a vehicle on any public road, the federal government and the state governments are going to mandate that you have car insurance. And there's two forms of that car insurance. There's the comprehensive and there's the liability. Mm-hmm. The liability is really the most important part. That protects others from your bad decision making. So that liability coverage is the minimum that most states are looking for. Most states have the same minimum liability coverage. Even though it's governed by the state, most states have a uniform look at that.
Okay.
And so in Tennessee, as an example, that state minimum, I believe, was $25,000 for each accident or each person in the car, $50,000 for the maximum out-of-pocket of that insurance company.
So this client, real quick, what do they do? I forgot.
They were an endodontist.
And okay, so
Yeah, they root canals.
root canals. All right.
Yeah,
So state minimums, an endodontist with state minimums,
yeah,
an endodontist who does probably pretty well for himself and his family,
yep.
right? Okay.
It's been very successful. And this endodontist was in the Navy first.
Okay.
And when I met him, he had now been in public practice, I think 3-4 years at the time. And so he wasn't on top of the world early on, right? But in those early days when he moved to Tennessee, he basically did what every person would do with their car insurance agent. He called them and said, "I'm not making a lot of money right now. I don't have the security of the Navy anymore.
Okay.
Can you just give me the cheapest insurance?" And the agent obliged him with that.
Yeah.
He gave him the lowest coverage possible because the client unknowingly and unwittingly in his own mind just, hey, I just want cheap coverage. I'm not really thinking about what I'm buying here,
Yeah.
but I'm supposed to have insurance. So he got the cheap coverage. Well, the cheap coverage was the agent gave him the state minimum without having a conversation about those assets in those orange.
I was just getting ready to ask you that.
blue
So,
buckets.
so the agent should have probably peeled the onion a little bit with the client, to really understand. Good.
Yeah. So let's take a look at that.
Yeah.
So if you can take the screen back one. So he's got the purple boxes, and we're talking about P1 up in the top left-hand corner.
Mm-hmm.
But that one box, that one microeconomic model, had a responsibility to protect the other 18 down here in the orange and the blue. So you can go back forward
Yep.
now. So I just wanted to make that point.
So that this one box say that one more time. This one box had the
Responsibility.
to protect all the savings
Yep.
and all the growth.
Yep.
All right.
Where all the fun happens, where everybody wants to go first.
Yeah.
The investments.
So that's important right there.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody wants to go here first,
Yeah.
and we're going to continue on, and hopefully we can, kind of shed some light on why this is so important.
So this individual's car insurance, you would think, well, state minimums, he wasn't making a lot of money yet. He didn't have a lot in those boxes. But by the time this incident occurred, and when I met him, he was starting to do okay in his practice. He was moving from 6 figures to 7 figures in gross revenue from his business.
Okay.
And so still wasn't at a point where he had a ton of savings, but there was a ton of risk and future opportunity.
Yeah.
So I
So
said,
there's a build-up happening.
right,
Right.
right. Just
And
like
then-
the story.
Right.
The buildup. The buildup here is that this guy was growing his assets. He had a lot of success. And so what I said to him as my new client was, hey, I think there are some issues missing here. Most everyone else he was talking to him about, hey, let's take your 401k and let's manage it in the market. No one in our industry brought up what I brought up to him. And I'm not patting myself on the back.
Yeah.
I'm actually saying to my industry, we failed him.
Yeah.
And we failed him by not looking at his protection components.
Yeah.
And you know why most advisors don't want to talk about protection to their clients?
Why is that?
My opinion is they think you're going to sell them something or try to sell them, some life insurance or some annuity.
Yeah.
And there may be some truth to that. But the reality is that there's these other components from car insurance, property insurance, liability, disability, medical, pension plans, wills and trusts, ownership agreements. Those need to be examined. And your advisors should be talking to you about that. And it doesn't mean they're necessarily the expert, but they should be talking to you in a way to say, let's bring in the experts in this area and make sure you have the M word,
Yeah.
maximum.
Maximum. Yep. Maximum benefits.
Benefits,
Yep.
minimum cost.
Yep.
And there's a trade-off in that. So the trade-off with this client was, hey, Mr. Client, here's some risk that I see in your overall plan. You're building this business. You've got a seven-figure business now, but you have state minimums on your car insurance. And he's like, well, I didn't know that. No one pointed that out to me.
Yeah. It's almost like a set it and forget it type thing.
Right.
Right.
And we all do that. We're all guilty of that.
100%. Yep.
So easy to do. Just pay your premium, and you think you pay your premium, you're insured.
Yep.
Well, you are insured, but at what limits?
Yeah. And then something bad happens, and then
Then all of a sudden we want the maximum.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So here's what happened. His daughter is running an errand, and remember, he's now got the state minimum, and we've fixed it. Right? We've got him at max.
Okay.
And he's like, yeah, my premium went up a little bit, but with strategies that we used, with deductibles, we put him on the hook for this small thing in life, which, by the way, before this, he had no deductible. He had state minimums. And he was like, well, man, the insurance is going to pay, and I won't have anything out of pocket.
Yeah.
Well, okay, you won't have anything out of pocket for the first $25,000, but after that,
right.
You're on the hook for everything.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, Doc, let's take a look at this. The issue is not your deductible so much, but that deductible and the low limits, that's the issue. What if something bad happens? How much do you want the insurance company to pay?
All of it.
All of it. That's exactly
Right?
what he said.
The transfer of risk.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's not going to happen. What they're going to pay is this up to this limit. You go over, now your company, your business, your assets have the risk and exposure of that.
Yeah.
And there might be someone listening go, well, Kenny, if he's got money in his company, he's protected, right? He has the corporate veil of protection. Not so fast, because here's what happened. His daughter's running an errand on behalf of the business. All right?
Yeah.
And the guy she runs over has an attorney who's smart enough to ask those type questions.
Oh, okay.
So when you were driving, young lady, where were you driving to? Oh, I was driving on an errand for my father. Oh, you were?
Your father.
Your father. What's your father do?
Yep.
Oh, my father's an endodontist.
Yeah. I promise this isn't scripted either, just so everybody's tracking, right?
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's being Columbo.
Yeah.
Just asking questions, because those questions are going to lead to consequence.
Right. And the more question he asks, and the more answers he's given, that onion is just being
Peeling
peeled
back that onion, the bigger the case becomes. And
we're trying to get down to the core, right?
how can I get people to get their checkbooks out?
Yep.
So the long story short here was that this guy went through a process to protect his client who'd been run over, right, by the daughter.
Rightfully so, and that's his job, right?
Now, that's right.
Yeah.
And not blaming him for that. The person she hit was inebriated. He was in a crosswalk.
Okay.
In a crosswalk's the key factor, but walks out in front of her car. And if you ever go to Tennessee, be careful driving around downtown over the weekend, because there's lots of young ladies and young men who have too much of the spirits.
Called Beale Street, is that right?
Broadway.
Or Broadway? Okay.
Broadway.
Yeah.
They're Bill Streets.
Is that in
that's in
Mississippi? Okay, yeah.
Kind of like Bourbon Street in
Kentucky?
no, that's Bourbon Street's down in New Orleans.
Yeah. What do I know?
Yeah, what? all those drunk people.
Anyways.
How do I know all these places?
Yeah, right.
So anyways, she hits him. She hurts him. He sues. And he sues for the maximum. So guess what the insurance company's on the hook for now?
The
maximum
of
his limits of liability.
Yeah.
Because we changed it. We got him protected at max.
Yeah.
But now, do you think the insurance company wants to fight a little harder when they know they're on the hook for millions
100%.
versus tens of thousands?
Yeah.
So tens of thousands, they would have said, hey, you know what, we'll settle. The rest is on the client. Well, this attorney really got to the point where he said, look, I don't know who your advisor was, but you structured yourself to protect your assets, right? I'm not even going there. There's enough money here from the insurance company to pay my client. But what ended up happening is the insurance company fought and settled with the guy, not for the max. He did get something, but it was far less than what their limits of liability was. And what the client ended up saying to me earlier is that I don't care what advice you give me for the rest of your life, that one piece of advice right there on going to my car insurance agent and upping my limits was worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
And I say that to everyone today. You're getting, this is free advice. This is free recommendations. Go out to your car insurance agent and make sure, based on your assets, that you have the maximum protection to protect your assets from litigious people.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And if you do that appropriately would be put yourself on the hook for the small things in life. That's the deductible. Raise the deductible to the point where you can stand writing the check out of pocket.
Yeah.
And then take that excess, because what that's going to do is save you money. Take those savings and add those back on top to give you better protection against litigious people. And anything that you can protect, well, anything that's worth protecting should be insured.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it should be insured either through self-insurance. You're transferring the risk. You have the asset on the sideline that if that liability comes along, you've got the assets to replace it.
And, you know, that really just highlights the importance of why we start here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Awesome.
And the car insurance is just one little example. We can go through each one of those and say, why wouldn't we in each one of these areas get the maximum that an insurance company will give us as long as we can get the minimum cost?
So KP, that maximum then bleeds over to property insurance, and then, you know, we push into liability a little bit. So when we start looking at our property being our homes, right? How does this all work in?
So with property, there's a few things. There's multiple layers inside property. You've got replacement costs. So if your house burns down, what do you want back?
The max.
And do you want the max house? Right? You want your house back, or do you want somebody else's house?
I want my house back.
Yeah. Or here's an example of that. Let's say your house burns down and the insurance company wheels in a FEMA trailer and says, hey, there's some of these left over from Hurricane Milton. So here's a FEMA trailer for you. We'll wheel that in. There you go. There's your replacement.
Yeah, I would not be pleased.
Right. But hey, here's the good
I have
news.
a roof over, don't get me wrong, I have a roof over my head.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've built something up to where I wanted it. I loved it.
But Shorty, there's wheels on this trailer, and if you're mad at your neighbors, you can just wheel your
KP,
trailer
there's
away.
no sentimental value in this. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
So you want your house, the house that you own, the house that you put the blood, sweat, and tears into.
Yeah. And that's
You
not a
want
dig
that
on
back.
FEMA. We're just, you know, we're just.
Yeah, it is a little bit. But no, I mean, the point being, you know, it's great when you don't have anything. The FEMA trailer is awesome.
Yeah.
Right? A roof over your head. But that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about maxing the coverage to give you back what you lost.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you do that, there's a way to do that efficiently with property. And that ties into what you do with your vehicle insurance. Most agents, P&C agents, will bring together the property and the home.
Bundle.
In a bundle, right?
Yep.
So when those are bundled, again, the same mindset is high deductible to where you can really come out of pocket and it not be catastrophic. So your deductible as high as possible to get the maximum liability coverage and the maximum replacement cost. Now remember, insurance companies aren't going to insure you for more than 1 times your economic value or 1 times your home's economic value.
Okay.
If they insured your house for 3 times its value, what would be happening to homes?
Oh my gosh.
There'd be a lot of people burning their houses down.
Yeah.
I hate to be that
Yeah.
judgmental, But wait a minute.
Wait, you can.
I got this house. I can make it 3 times better.
Right.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I'll go bet some dude that $100.
And the insurance is already a mess as it is, right? So,
right. And by the way, to that point, inflation has done serious damage to all of our pocketbooks over the last 3-4 years.
Yep.
Car insurance and homeowners insurance across the board in the U.S. on average, I think homeowners has gone up like 33%. Car insurance in most states has gone up 50%.
Yeah.
That's
I've felt that burn.
Yeah.
100%.
Me too.
Yep.
And haven't had any wrecks. Now, been a little bit heavy on the gas pedal, but no wrecks, just drive a little fast.
Kenny says
Confessions.
a little bit.
Confessions. But, you know, people go, well, why have those rates gone up? Well, look around you and look at the cost of replacement.
Yeah.
If replacement costs have gone up, insurance companies have to raise their rates to afford to pay those replacement costs.
Yeah. And we're talking just basic material right here.
Right.
Right? Wood, siding, roofs, everything.
Yeah. And all of those have gone up.
Yep.
Sheetrock's gone up,
Right.
plywood's gone up. And when those costs go up, insurance companies have to adjust. Now, here'd be my argument. If those costs go down, are they adjusting downward? We're not.
This is
seeing
where we
that
need to
too
take a
often.
poll. You
Right.
know, we go live, we take a poll.
What do you
100%
see?
no.
Yeah.
No. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So the idea here with property insurance, Shorty, is again just to put yourself in a position that what we focus on in our practice is the liability. What if somebody shows up to your house for a good time and you're having a party, you're having a dinner party, Christmas party, and I'll give you an example here. It happened to one of our clients of the firm. They had a Christmas party over in Bay Colony, and the upstairs balcony that everyone was hanging out on collapsed and fell down on people on the first floor.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Fortunately, nobody died, but there was some pretty serious injuries. And there were some friends of the people who own this house that weren't so friendly, right? When it came down to being hurt, they wanted their injuries to be paid for. They wanted their trauma to be paid for. They wanted their mental trauma to be paid for.
Yeah.
And so people started suing each other. And guess who's on the hook? The client.
Mm-hmm.
But now, does the client have enough liability protection on the house? In most policies that I see today, there's usually about $500,000. 300,000 to $500,000.
Okay.
And so in a dinner party where you got 20 or 30 people at your house and something like that happens,
Yeah, it's only going to go so far.
only going to go so far.
Yeah.
So that's why we say it's important to have an umbrella policy.
Okay.
The umbrella picks up where your car and your homeowner limits of liability leave off. And so the way you do that is you say, well, usually they get issued in $1 million tranches.
Mm-hmm.
So in that P3 that we see on the screen there, we want to add at least, I would say $1 million for most clients, and that's going to mirror your net worth. So if your net worth is $1 million, you should probably have $1 million liability policy or umbrella. If your net worth is $5 million, you should probably up that to $5 million.
Yeah.
And that is, again, that first layer of protection that if something bad happens, you've got it in place. Now, you can get $1 million of liability coverage
Just about to say this. Yeah.
for typically $300 or so.
Yeah. I just got one. Mine's $340 a year.
Yeah, for $1
So
million.
I got to pay $28 a month in the event I have an issue. Okay.
Not a bad day
Yeah.
to add another layer of sleeping well at
Yep.
night.
That third wall in the castle.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
Cool.
So we can go through these each one by one, but I want to do something to, again, make kind of the podcast a little sexy today. No one really thinks about insurance in a way of, well, how do I insure my investments?
Mm-hmm.
So when we get into the investment world and you think about if you could insure your income, would you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so like in P4, P5, the way you insure your income in your working years is through disability insurance. And if you can't work anymore, most disability policies will pay anywhere from 65 to 85%, depending on, again, how it's structured and how you buy it. It'll pay to cover some portion of that, and it can be either tax-free or it can be taxable depending on who's paying the premium, you or the employer. But if I'm talking to clients who are still in the early years of working, we want to make sure that's covered. I was just talking with a guy on the phone today whose brother just had some throat surgery, and he's an airline pilot. Do you think speaking matters?
Yeah, it's a big deal.
So that's what kind of crossed my mind is, man, I wonder if his group disability covers that in the event that he can't work anymore. And then outside of that, man, maybe we need to be talking about disability to these pilots who their voice and talking to air traffic control, it's important.
Absolutely. Yep.
So
you got to land a plane, right?
right.
Eventually.
And it takes communication is
Yep.
the first thing you do, right? So I remember my pilot, 43 hours of pilot training that I have.
Well, before you take off, you got to talk to air traffic control.
Yeah,
right?
ATC.
Yeah.
You know.
Even pre-checks, you still got to talk.
Yeah, I'm going to get schooled on this, I'm sure. So the idea here is that in the accumulation phase or your working years, that disability medical is there. Now, go over to P6. P6, we'll see on the screen here, is government plans. Mm-hmm. So government plans has to do with the income distribution years. That usually means that, do you have a pension plan? You retired from the Navy. You gave the Navy 20 years, and in exchange for that, they gave you 23 years.
There we go.
Man, I'm just rounding. Come on. 23 years.
That's 7.5% more.
Touche. Great point. Yep. That's called a defined benefit plan. So the Navy has a defined benefit plan for those who serve 20 years or more. Yeah. That unless you're medically retired, you can get out earlier, but that's a sucky way to have to leave.
That's a great point right here, and this could be something else we could talk about later on. So the military, and it's a quick segue, military's gone away from a pension plan.
That's right.
Right? And now we're under the traditional plans of qualified accounts. Yeah. So we could talk about that in a different...
That's the new BRC plan, right?
Yeah, VRC or BRC.
Yeah. So anyways, we'll come back to that one and have a whole session there. But the idea, it's more like the FERS, Federal Employee Retirement System. Okay. So there's a hybrid of, you get a 401k TSP along with a smaller pension for your years of service. Yep. So you're under the old plan. Mm-hmm. So you gave them 23 years. You got a little 7.5% bump on your pension, but that's a lifetime benefit. Now, if you think about that pension, you were E8 over 23 years.
Yep, senior chief, 23 years.
So senior chief, 23 years. So everybody could go out on the internet and look at your pension, Shorty.
Yep.
But what's cool about your pension, and that pension's different for all different ranks and enlisted officer. But if you think about how much money would it take that if they didn't give you the cash flow each month and they would have given you a lump sum on the day of your retirement, how much money would it take to guarantee that stream of income continues over your lifetime and your spouse's lifetime? Indexed to inflation.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah. So let's have some fun with this for a minute. Let's talk about P6 here. We'll look at this. Do you mind saying your pension number?
No, not at all. Yep.
All right.
I mean, you can go look it up.
All right. So
I believe it's so right now net I'm at $3,516 a month.
Okay, times 12.
Yep. So we'll go
about 37,000 and some change, 38,000.
42,192.
All right, so let's go in to just a little financial calculator here. Just open another screen.
You want to do this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'll let you drive, though. Just go to versatile calculator.
Oh, okay.
Just open another
Second
screen here. And let's do this. Let's go over to withdrawals for a minute.
All right.
And go over to annual withdrawals, and let's put in that number, 42,192, and go hit that pencil and put that number in again. And here's a question I'd have for you, Shorty.
I got to change the age.
Yeah, just change the age to your current age. Yeah. How long do you think you're going to live, Shorty?
I mean, I'd love to go out to 95.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll talk to the Lord about that, see what we can do. All right, so let's put 42,000 in there. Well, put your pension number. What is it? 42.
Yeah, 42,192. Do that.
All right, so that pension, by the way, is not going to stay at 42,192.
Right.
It's going to be indexed to inflation. So it's an in-kind benefit that the government says, for as long as Shorty lives, we're going to inflate this according to our cost of living adjustment. And let's just say that's 3.15% is the 100-year average. So what that's going to pay out to you over the next 53 years, if you live to 95, is $5,591,409.
Wow.
So if we were to look at that number today, there'd be a discount factor on it. That's the future value.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were taking the lump sum of that today, this is what it would take to get you there in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But what would it take today in today's dollars to make that last? But, oh, by the way, you get to 95, if you're still living, what's left?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I bring this up is that most people in their retirement planning are grossly underinsured. And Kenny they go, what do you mean, Kenny? What do you mean grossly underinsured? Meaning most people have grossly done themselves a disservice in the amount of money that they've saved to prepare for that day called retirement. So theoretically, a 42-year-old, and there's some other high math we could get into, but theoretically today, what this tells me is that a 42-year-old today would need somewhere around $5.5 million if they plan to live inflation adjusted out to 95 and they wanted $42,000 a year. They need $5 million to do that. So let's just have some fun here for a minute, Shorty. Let's take that $5,591,000. And let's just say you took the lump sum.
Okay.
All right, so cut, copy, and paste that number, and let's put it in the retirement pressures calculator. So here's your insurance policy. Now, if you want $42,192 a year, and you want that adjusted for inflation each and every year, all right, so we're going to put that up in present value. So just put the $5 million there. All right? And put yourself at 42. So what we're doing, folks, is we're going to go play with some numbers here for a minute. So you don't get your pension, right? Mm-hmm. You took the $5 million today. You took the lottery. All right. If you don't take any money out, and we're using large cap stocks, let's go to like 1955.
And just so everybody's tracking, we can mimic the market here year over year, starting back in the 1920s.
Yeah.
So we can go back and see the Great Depression. Any time of year you want to take a look, or any time of.
Yeah. So if we go back to 1955, and you were in the market in 1955 with $5,591,000,
I'd be a damn billionaire.
you'd be a bazillionaire. You got 1.2 billion. Now, this is before taking any distributions,
Yep.
right? But let's just now go in and put 42,000 a year in. Remember that number? That was your pension number.
Yeah, do this. 42.
And we're going to see what happens to that billion. There's going to be some money left over during this period. We're going to inflate it at 3.15%. Okay? You still have $1 billion if you were lucky enough to mimic 1955 and 53 years later.
Yep.
You're still a bazillionaire.
53. Yep.
Yep. So you created enough money. You have what I call FU money.
I'd say so.
Your plan is solid for the market. Now, that's the timing. We look at that time that I picked from 1955 forward, and let's just go examine that year over year. Right out of the gate, year one, you took $42,000 out, and the market gave you, the S&P 500 gave you 31%. That year. This is before fees, before expenses. This is gross return.
So a gain of 1.7 million.
You did all right.
Yeah.
You got ahead of the curve quickly there. Now let's go pick a different sequence. Let's go pick on the Great Depression. Let's go to 1929.
Wow, look at that.
You went from a billionaire.
It's a $900 million difference.
Yeah. So 7.61 was your net return. Now, this is what the federal government's doing, right? The federal government theoretically has a defined benefit plan for you. The federal government has $5 million in a kitty right now set aside for Shorty, if he makes it to 95.
Yep.
But here's what the federal government does. If you don't make it to 95 and you only make it to, let's say, 60, let's look at you at age 60 and see how much is in your theoretical account. Scroll down.
Sorry.
You can do it here.
Yep.
At age 60, in your theoretical account here, you've got 7.3 million. Now, you pass away at age 60. Are they writing a check to Tiffany for 7.3 million?
Nope.
What are they doing?
Survivor benefits.
And what does that mean?
That lump sum goes to a $1,700 a month income.
So they cut the income in half and keep the 7 million.
Yep.
So they lower their risk because now there's only one person surviving, right? Or now they're doing the factor on two, and you're paying for that.
Yep. $129 a month.
You pay them a premium, a survivor benefit premium. So that 7.3 million, they're putting in their pocket and saying, okay, let's go to 60 and let's put Tiff's money in. So that 42 at 60, that's 18 years from now, Shorty.
There we go.
How about that?
There we go.
18 years. So 1,700
times 12.
So that income gets cut in half. Now we can go to that year. Yep, there you go. So we'd have to go play with the calculator a little bit. I saw where it didn't capture the number right, but that's okay. 60. Here's an issue. Really, that 73,000 should be half of that.
Yeah.
So go back and just put. It's like starting the game all over again. 73,000 is now about 40,000.
Oh, why didn't it?
Because it went back to the original number.
Oh,
so just go ahead and put the 21 in, and we'll just kind of stare at that.
From the top?
No, from right there. But I want to point something out here to people who are looking. What it actually ends up doing is it makes the number
okay, here we
go up. So it reduces the risk to the federal government, increases the risk to your family, but your family doesn't get to keep $251 million.
Nope.
The federal government has that in their coffers. Right?
So there's a spread there.
Yeah. The spread the government's keeping.
Yep.
So what we want to do in planning and strategy is how do we push this to where it's more favorable for you? That's where we come back to this income planning and income strategies to look at ways to mitigate or minimize those risks. And here's the reality. In the real world, if you were taking this this future benefit, that $5.5 million wouldn't be your offer. As a matter of fact, it would probably be something less inflation. So the discount would be future inflation. Let's just go play with that for a minute. Let's take $5,591,000. Copy that number again. All right, and go back to the versatile calculator. Put that number in the present value. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce that number by 3.15% a year over that 53-year period. So go to inflows. And up at rate of return, put negative 3.15. All right, so go to the very end. Yep, so that $2 million. So that's what I'm saying here is that reduces that account by $2.3 million. Your lump sum would probably be, so copy and paste that number, $2,317,000. That's probably what they would give you in today's value if you were taking like a lump sum settlement. So a lot of pension plans out there will give you a lump sum settlement on your future value. Mm-hmm. So if they think you're going to make it to 43 years, so put that number in. You'll have to take the negative.
Little less than half.
Yep. And now we'll go back in and take that number, $2,300,000, and let's go back to your financial retirement pressures. Let's replace that number. So if somebody was giving you a lump sum today, let's go back into desired income.
Clear it out.
And yes, start it back at 42.
All right.
And then put inflation back in. So this would be this person, again, if they're taking income and they got a lump sum pension and they could walk away with a lump sum, and $42,000 a year was the income that they needed. Now, income that they needed, can you and Tiffany make it off $42,000 a year?
No. So
in an ideal world, what is your desired income as a 42-year-old? And you play along with me here. You don't have to give me your real number.
150.
All right, so let's put that in. And you got $2 million. So you need 150.
How far this goes.
Yeah. So you want 150 today, and if you could have that, and we got to index it to inflation, right? Mm-hmm. Would you like a pay raise?
Yep, absolutely.
So you'd like a pay raise in the future. Now you're sitting on $2.3 million.
Wow.
Oh, 95, you got an $18 million deficit.
We got to keep in mind, we're also in the Great Depression.
We're in the Great Depression. Now
right.
Let's switch it back to 1955.
I could reverse it too. We could show the sequence of return.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So what we're doing here, guys, is so the halfway mark, we're just going to flip it and put the bottom on top. So the negative years in the beginning, we're going to put those at the end. And you look at the bottom number there, 14,912 versus 18,549. All right.
Still lost money.
Yep. But the year probably changed to when we ran out.
Yep. Let's go see that.
All right. So starting with the Great Depression, we ran out in
the eighth year.
This signifies, hey, we're taking big hits in the beginning of our retirement. When we flip that return, we went out to the 24th year.
Just for grins and giggles, let's put the $5.5 million back in now.
All right.
But your present value need today is $150,000 a year. Does $5 million get you there?
Flip it here.
Yeah. So $5 million.
This is with the Great Depression.
Oh wow, negative $14 million.
And instead of the 8th year, so double the money, we get out to the 26th year.
Well, you tripled your money. You went from 42 to 150.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, I was thinking the present value.
But that's a point today that your cash flows. Income is the outcome for everybody. That's what we're getting down to here.
Yeah.
Is that even if I give you a lump sum, you just can't go below the lump sum. That happens in lottery winners.
Yeah.
Most lottery winners, 18 months from the date of their winnings, gone.
Wow.
The overwhelming majority, gone.
That's wild.
So most people look at that big 401k balance, or they look at that big pension buyout balance, and they're like, oh, it feels good to have this statement showing me all this money. But most people want, when they retire, they want to go buy the yacht, they want the country club, they want to enjoy life.
All the things.
Travel,
They're like, yeah,
stuff.
Man. Yep.
Now I can go buy stuff. Not so fast.
Yeah.
Did you save enough to go buy stuff?
Yeah.
Did you insure?
I was just about to ask that. Are you protected?
Right.
Right.
Do you have the permission slip to go buy stuff? And that's what we have to do as advisors, is to be that voice of reason, to say, does your plan allow for strategies to give you the permission slip to go spend down an asset?
Right.
Not just spend the interest, but spend your principal and interest.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, well, then maybe you should have a conversation with us.
Yeah.
Or with someone who's good at this.
Yeah.
Or great at this, preferably.
I just wanted to highlight this real quick. So
Yeah.
when we swap these numbers back to 550 or 5.5 mil, and keeping that income right there at 150, look at the difference here. So Great Depression,
Yep.
we ran out in the 25th year, negative 14 mil. I flip it, and we talk a lot about this with our clients, the sequence of returns here.
Yeah. 53 years, you basically went out to the 26th year and flipped it and said, let's take all the returns at the bottom and put those at the top.
Yep. So that's flipped.
Yep.
Now get rid of those negative returns.
You did the
and
last
again,
26 years first.
Yep.
And the first 26 years last.
Big difference.
Yeah.
Huge.
You
All right.
survived it in a big, big way.
Yeah.
And that's right. We talk to our clients about what's the timing and the sequence of your retirement distribution. How do we insure against these risks? Now, let's just play around with this for a minute. What if we had a portfolio, as an example here? Let's go back to the bad news. Let's go to 29. Flip it back. There you go. We ran out of money. Mm-hmm. Is there a scenario where if we had less money, so let's let's make that 4.4 million. And what if we had 1.1 million over in a protected bucket? So let's click on that sequence of defense. So this is basically saying, well, what if we had a non-market source, meaning a pot of money that's not exposed to the risk of things like the Great Depression?
The jar in the yard.
The jar in the yard.
Yep.
We got a jar in the yard year. What this tells me, if you look at this little green number here, that's 7.33, tells me that without making a rate of return, we've got a defense factor of 7.33 years, meaning we've got a side account that we could go to grab 7 years worth of income to offset those Great Depression risks.
Okay.
So let's turn it on. So let's just hit that plus button. So we're going to take care of year one. All right, go back. We can see that 16 million deficit went down by, let's go, 100 grand. Well, what happens if we take another 150? Keep going, third year.
So we're eliminating the down markets or the down times in the market.
Show
right
that
here.
on the screen there with your arrow, if you would.
Yeah. So right here, look at the down market right here. We have the jar in the yard, and we're instead of 150 coming out of our lump sum right here of 4.4 million, or sorry, over here on the right, we're pulling from a different area.
Yep, that
Right.
jar in the yard. We're pulling it out of a bucket that's not making a rate of return.
Yeah.
We just got a safe jar to pull this money from. And we can see, well, man, we took it from 16 million down to 15 million, but we're halfway through our jar.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling kind of nervous. All right, but now the market recovers. We're still going to take, we don't know the market recovers. So we're going to take that fourth distribution. We're at 13 million. Now, let's go one more. Let's see where it takes it from right there. And now show everybody, Shorty, why it took it from that year.
Let me back up here.
So we skipped that year. We
Yep.
don't know that the market's negative until after it happens.
Right. So we got to back up here and we got to go BOY. Where's the beginning of year?
Yeah, so the first year, the 150 came out of the market.
Yep.
The second year, we took it out of the jar in the yard. The third year, we took it out of the jar in the yard. Fourth year, we took it out of the jar in the yard. And the fifth year, out of the jar in the yard, even though the market recovered by 53%.
Right.
But then that sixth year, market went down 1.44%, but we took our distribution out of the investment portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now we get out to the
Look at
sixth
that.
distribution.
There it is. We just went positive.
Isn't that freaking crazy?
Yep.
The guy with 5.5 million ran out of money. And we're doing this on the fly, by the way, folks. We didn't set this up.
Nope. So basically we took the 5.5 million, carved out 1 mil from it, 1.1, put it on the side.
20% of the portfolio.
Yep. So we've got the 4.4 over here and the 1.1 over here, still putting us there at the 5.5, but we have market-connected money and a jar in the yard.
Yep.
All right.
I just had a conversation with a 74-year-old young lady yesterday who told me a tragic story of this example. They had all their money in Bitcoin that ended up being a Bitcoin scheme, and they lost millions. And then she lost her husband. And the moral of the story is not all the eggs should ever be in that one basket. As sexy and as awesome as it sounds, buyer beware.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Ray Dalio talks about an all-weather portfolio. That's transfer of risk. All we did here was took 20% of the portfolio, transferred the risk, and we righted the ship and left a legacy to your family. We didn't buy anything except a jar in the yard.
Right.
Now, what if that jar in the yard earned a rate of return? What if it had additional benefits? What if it had additional money supply?
Right.
What if it had, if
If
that rabbit hole is getting to me. What if it had other features and benefits to provide additional sources in times that we haven't talked about? Illness, sickness, long-term care. So transferring those risks back to the protection component,
Yeah. Let's roll that back.
that would be
Let's hit the 7th year here in this defense factor
okay.
and see. So you can see in that we took it 5 years in a row. We still had a negative balance of 7.7 million. Okay, we had to use that jar one more time. We protected ourselves, and now our account balance is positive at 3.7 mil.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we used one of the worst times in the market.
Yeah. Let's hit it one more time here. Okay. So that went here. We had a negative year here. We took the distribution from the jar in the yard. Now we're up beyond our total value of 5.5.
Yeah. Pretty wild.
So you want to build in a rate of return here?
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
We'll do that on another day.
All right.
Because we're running out of time today. But this shows protection. Well, protection is not just going to your insurance company and get protection. Protection can be the mindset in how you distribute your assets across multiple platforms.
Yeah. Not all your eggs in one basket.
Not all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
So we're going to leave it at that today, I think. Because
Let me ask you one question.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
So I got a really good question the other day from a client. He said, Shannon, what's the difference between a will and a trust? What's the importance there?
Yeah.
Can you kind of dig into that just maybe a minute or two? And
Yeah. So a will, well, let's back up from that. What happens if you pass without a will?
Who takes control?
Who takes control? The state does. The state that you're domiciled in. That's called dying intestate. The state takes over and makes sure that your heirs are the rightful recipients of anything you have left over, from a baseball card to a amazing piece of real estate. The state has the responsibility of managing your assets disbursement. Now, when we look at the federal government and how they do things, do they look like they're really good at that? It's we're picking on them, but they're usually not the best at it.
Yeah, it's not very efficient.
Yeah. So the next step would be, well, let me write out my own testament, a testamentary will that says what I would want to have happen. And then I'm going to get it notarized or witnessed and notarized so that everybody can know that it was really my wishes.
Yeah.
Well, in most states, if not all, I'm not an attorney, but most states, if not all, the will can be contested by anyone. They can petition the court to say, nope, that's not really Shannon's wishes in his will, that he didn't mean to do that. And let's give you an example of that. Let's say you had a life insurance policy, and the life insurance policy, you said, leave it to me, right? I'm your beneficiary, named beneficiary. So I present the insurance company your death certificate. Insurance company looks, says, okay, Kenny's your beneficiary. We're going to send him the proceeds. Then all of a sudden, Tiffany comes up and goes, well, wait a minute. I'm his surviving spouse. My will says that all assets, benefits, policies should go to me, his surviving spouse. But his life insurance says it's going to Kenny. I want to contest that. Well, the insurance company is going to go, the beneficiary designation supersedes the will. We're paying the proceeds to Kenny. So I've seen that happen before.
Wow. Yeah.
But let's say there's other assets. So beneficiary designation is going to supersede the will, and most courts that I'm aware of are going to allow that to proceed because that's a contract between you and the insurance company, and they have to honor that contract. So the will says these are the things we want to outline, you want to outline as your wishes to your family members. But the family member can go to the court and go, well, yes, he wrote this, but he didn't really mean it. And here's an example. He left the life insurance to Kenny, and everything else went to Tiffany as an example. Well, a will, in short, can be contested.
Okay.
A trust has a stronger binding agreement between you and your estate. And a trust then assigns a trustee. Now, that trust says while you're living, those assets have now been transferred into this legal non-breathing entity. So when you transfer assets, meaning you transfer ownership into the trust, now you're doing things while you're alive, while you're competent, while you're able to make sound financial decisions, and the ownership gets transferred to the trust. Courts that I'm aware of rarely, if ever, have pierced that agreement between a trust and you as the individual. And usually that would be like a revocable living trust. So there's a stronger relationship between you and your assets while you're living than for someone to say, like in a will, what's going to happen with those assets. And the contract is between you and the custodian now. You send them this agreement called your trust, and it says, hey, I've moved all of my assets into the name of this trust. They're going to retitle those assets. Now, when you want to go sell the trust, when you want to sell an asset in the trust, they're going to look at the trust document and say, well, what did Shannon say he wanted to happen? Well, he said he wanted the successor trustee to take over and carry out his wishes in this document. And that successor trustee, Shorty, now has a fiduciary responsibility, meaning they have a legal responsibility to carry out the wishes of you, the grantor or creator of that trust. So much more powerful than even having a will.
Yeah.
Much more powerful than even having nothing.
Right.
So at a minimum, have a will. In an
Go a
ideal
step
max,
further. Yep.
if you want max protection,
Yeah.
use revocable living trusts at a minimum. And then we can go into other
Yeah.
components of ownership agreements like family LLCs, family limited partnerships. If you have more stuff, more money, more problems,
Yeah.
you put more components in place to protect yourself. Again, finishing today,
Yeah.
maximum benefits, maximum protection. If you had the choice between maximum and minimum, which would you choose?
Maximum.
So how do we go maximize all of your benefits based on your assets?
Yeah.
That's the key question that should be asked, and that should be the motive and goal, is to maximize the benefits, maximize the protection components. And then you've built your castle as strong as you can build it.
Cool. Hey, great insights, KP. Yeah, appreciate
Yeah,
that.
thank you, man. Good
Yep.
stuff today.
Awesome.
All right,
Thanks for
folks.
watching.
See you next time.
Miami, ready, speed 180.
Blackbox.